Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul. And this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome two guests, a married couple, Vanessa and John Armstrong. Vanessa's website opens up to a close-up headshot, which is inscribed, "Why is my face so big?" Right below that, it says, Vanessa likes to write about things. Sometimes she gets paid for it. I suspect a sense of humor I am going to enjoy. Her bio goes on to say, Vanessa started out her adult life as a very serious business person. She got not one, but two master's degrees and spent most of her 20s working for very serious companies and moving every 2 years or so. In her early 30s, she and her dog Penny moved to Los Angeles, where she began writing and dyeing her hair different colors. Vanessa continues to live in Los Angeles with Penny, her daughter Maddie, and her husband John, who is a professional magician. No, she doesn't know how he does his tricks. Her writing has appeared in publications like the New York Times, Smithsonian Magazine, Vulture, the LA Times, Travel and Leisure, Glamour Magazine, Atlas Obscura, and Film, and her hair is currently blue, but she is thinking about dyeing it purple. It was Vanessa's article in Travel and Leisure, I Married a Cruise Ship Entertainer, Here's What My Life at Sea is Really Like, that brought the Armstrongs to my attention. I reached out to Vanessa to come and chat on the Joy of Cruising podcast, and she was so kind as to introduce me to John. John is from Orlando, Florida, and became fascinated by the magic he saw in the theme parks all around him. He acted on that fascination and, are you ready for this? At age 20, became the resident magician at Walt Disney World. After 5 years at Disney World, Vegas beckoned John and he became headliner at Caesar's Magical Empire. That springboarded John to do tours all over the world, including, thankfully for our listeners, on cruise ships. John has also worked on many films and television shows as a magic consultant and designer, is the co-creator of the IDW comic series Smoke and Mirrors, and stars in the documentary Magicians, Life in the Impossible. John just published a book, How to Win, Essays and Routines for the Stand-Up Magician. Wow, what a dynamic couple. Welcome, Vanessa and John, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
So how are you each doing?
We're good.
We're good. Yeah, all's good. It's just we were trying to look at each other to figure out which one's going to speak first. So, but yeah, we're fine.
Well, before we talk about your exciting careers and cruising, tell our listeners about yourselves. Where you're from, where you live, your background, anything you would like to share.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll start. So I'm John Armstrong. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and grew up around Disney and things like that. I decided I was going to be a magician, and that's what I've been doing my entire life. I lived in Las Vegas for a little while. I did a show out there called Caesar's Magical Empire, and now for the last 23 years, I've been living here in Los Angeles. We moved to Burbank last year, and that's been a great thing. And I have a little 3-year-old, and that's about it for me, I guess.
Yeah. So I grew up in New Jersey. I moved to LA a little over 10 years ago. And before I moved to LA, I had a career doing, corporate strategy stuff. But then had a career pivot where I wanted to switch to doing freelance writing. So I've done writing for several publications like the New York Times, Glamour Magazine, Smithsonian Magazine, and a bunch of entertainment outlets as well. And I think why I'm here is I wrote an essay for Travel and Leisure about what it's like being married to John and being a passenger or a guest of his, so to speak, when he's working on ships, and just sort of that experience of doing that. And yeah, I guess that's me.
Hey, Vanessa, let me ask you a question. You mentioned that you do some writing for entertainment magazines. By any chance, are you a movie reviewer for Rotten Tomatoes?
I do have a Rotten Tomatoes like profile. I don't write for Rotten Tomatoes. So yes, I primarily do TV, but I do movies as well. Review.
Okay. Because I saw that name on Rotten Tomatoes, and I said, "Oh, that must
Yeah,
be the Vanessa I'm
that's
going to be
me.
talking to." Okay. Let's talk about cruising. When was each of your first cruises?
All right. So I think the first time I've actually ever stepped foot on a cruise ship is when I was working a magic themed cruise. I grew up in Florida and knew a lot of cruise entertainers, but I never actually did cruise entertaining, nor did even go as a passenger on a ship until
Mhm.
I went on a carnival ship that it was for a magic cruise. Basically, it was a magic convention at sea, and I was one of the acts that was there to lecture and perform and whatever for the magicians. I was hired to do that. So not hired by the cruise line, but hired by the people who were putting on the convention at sea, a buyout type of situation. And then
I'm sorry, John. When was that?
I probably 2006, 8, somewhere around there. Because the year after they did it again, and then that was that famous cruise that got stuck out in the middle of it was in the ocean and it had lost all the power and people were having to sleep on the decks because everything was.
Oh, okay.
That was the second year of the magic cruise and I was on the first year, so I missed that catastrophe by a year, but and then they stopped doing it because I think they just had such a bad experience. They stopped particularly doing that particular cruises. But then I started actually performing on ships, and I think the first ship I ever performed on as an actual cruise, hired by the cruise line entertainer was I was on a Seabourn ship was the first one I ever did, I believe.
Have you ever been on a cruise just as a passenger?
You know what? No, I never have. I
Hmm.
It's never been the what I would think of first as what I would do for leisure time. And let's be very honest, my
Hmm.
job is essentially leisure time. Like I am a magician, and so I travel, I do that. So when I think about what I want to do when I'm not performing or like when not working, it's normally sitting at home. That's usually because I'm on the road all the time when I'm working. So it's a different thing for me.
So on that first cruise, the Magic theme cruise, what were your initial impressions
Oh, it was great. I mean,
of
I think it's
cruising?
awesome. I mean, the idea of like having like the floating resorts and having all the food and the experiences, the shows and everything together. I mean, I think it's a great concept, and I'm very much a fan. I'm very lucky that I get to work in this environment, and that's my job. So it's not that I wouldn't want to do that. It's just it doesn't occur to me now that I do it so often for my job.
Did you have anxiety about seasickness or anything like that?
You know what? Seasickness never bothered me. I'm a big roller coaster theme park guy, so like I never had any major motion sickness issues.
How about you, Vanessa? When was your first cruise?
Yeah, my first cruise was with John, actually. We did Crystal. There was a it wasn't like a magic themed cruise.
That's right. Magic Castle at Sea.
Yeah,
That was the early permutation of that on Crystal Cruise Line. And you're right. I think I probably did Crystal before I did
that's why I
Seabourn.
was
Now that I think
questioning
about
you.
it, yeah. But it was different because it was an outside
It was
program.
outside.
It wasn't like it was hired directly by Crystal. Anyway, it was a little different.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was my first one. And I had no, frankly, interest in doing cruises before that because I had a notion, which has been since disproved, that I just felt very claustrophobic to me, the idea of being on a ship in the ocean, like this deep water. But I had a great time on Crystal with you. And then when you start doing cruises more regularly, it's just a great way to see the world.
So, was your initial impression, Vanessa, pretty favorable?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought Crystal was great just because the restaurants were great. They have like basically a Nobu on board that you can eat at for free. And we did once, we had dinner there, like we just had basically 2 dinners in a row,
Mhm.
which I'm sure they loved. But um, so yeah, I had a great time on that. And we had there's a lot of magicians on that cruise because again, it was a magic themed cruise. So we had a lot of friends on board, which made it, I think, nice as well.
John, what was it like becoming a new cruise line employee? What was the, what we call in the corporate world, the onboarding process like?
I'm not really an employee. I'm always been a third party contractor, right? So I'm hired in to do my show, and most guest entertainers fall under the same heading. Where obviously the talent bookers are hiring us, but we're third party contractors. So we carry on our insurance, we do everything on our own, and we do our shows. We obviously, follow their policies and make sure everything is ship shape, for lack of a better term. And then we get paid, right? Our flat fees. So it's not like I work for them, where I would have to go to like their orientations or their sort of, type of things. They just want to make sure that we know in advance what they expect from us as guest entertainers, because we, even though we are not full-fledged employees, we are still carrying their brand, and it's very important for us to make sure that we're not doing anything that damage their brand.
Okay, so you don't have to do anything like safety drills and all of that stuff.
No, most guest entertainers are, that's the word is actually right there in the name, guest. So we are guests on the cruise ships. We are not revenue passengers. You guys who go on your cruise on your own, you guys are revenue passengers. We are not crew. We're there who work, but we are guests in the sense that we are there usually in a guest or a guest equivalency cabin. And we are on the guest manifest most of the time. There are exceptions, there's different little loopholes, but most of the time that I've worked in the industry, I've worked as a guest entertainer where I'm on the guest manifest, and I essentially, with restrictions, because obviously I wouldn't want to do anything to take away from the revenue passengers experience, I am treated like a guest.
So talk a little bit about what it's like to be a performer on cruise ships. What does your typical week look like?
Well, it depends. Sometimes, because mostly who I perform for and work for these days is Disney Cruise Line. So again, I have an agent. My agent takes care of all the money aspects of things. And then I go and I do my shows. The shows that I'm doing, sometimes I'm doing what's called mid-shipping, which means I get in the middle of one cruise and leave in the middle of the next cruise. So I'm actually only at sea or away for about maybe 7, 6, 8 days, somewhere in that vicinity. But I'm doing my show for two different sets of passengers who will get on and get off, because most Disney cruises start and end in the same location. And then it's not like one of those world type cruises where they go different places. So I'm stopping in the middle of those cruises so the performers so they can see my performances multiple times. So there on a cruise like that, I'm coming in, I'm most likely doing my show the day before. The day that I get there. I come in the day before and you stay in a hotel. The ship gets there the next day. I get on the ship, and most likely I'm going to do my show that day. Then the next day, I'm going to do another show for the adults. This is on Disney, because Disney is a family show, which I do twice based around dinner seatings. And the second time, I'm going to do an adult show, which is not risque or anything. It's just a show meant for 18 and up to be a little more sophisticated. And then most likely I do a workshop. Those passengers will go when we get back to port, and most likely Port Canaveral. And then I will do the exact same thing for the first part of the next cruise, and then leave in the middle of the next cruise when another entertainer will take my place and do exactly what I just did. So that's one way it works. And then the other way it works is when we have coming up, for example, where I'm taking my family with me, and I get on and get off with the passengers. I'm on for 5 days, and there I'm not going to work nearly as much, because I'm only going to do my show in the theater twice. That's one day. I'm going to do my adult show once, maybe twice, but most likely just once. And then I'm going to do the workshop at one day. So over the set 5 days I'm actually on board, I'm only going to work 3 of those days.
Now, curiosity question. Do you find any difference between cruise ship audiences versus audiences on land? Is one harder to please than the other?
I don't know, a bit harder to please, but there's definitely differences. I mean, and there's differences between the different lines as well. So some lines are going to have a much more different clientele because of background, economic status, where they come from in the world, and age. All of that changes depending on the line. I work on Disney, so obviously it's much more families, a lot more kids, things like that. And so that's a big part. When I was doing luxury cruises, I was obviously working for people who, on an average day were wearing more money and jewelry than I had seen in a year. So it all depends like where I was, in that spectrum. But as far as in my opinion, what sets you apart and what really makes that experience very different than performing on, let's say, on land, for lack of a better term, is that I'm not going to go away and they're not going to go away. Usually I would go into a venue, I would do my show, I would leave. I would never see those people again. Mm-hmm. Here, I'm going to be with those people for a good 3 or 4 more days before or after that show. And so the show basically becomes where I have to present a really good show, but then also spend the rest of the time being a good brand ambassador for whatever line and company that I'm working for, and being just a friendly person who it wants to engage. So it's like 50% show and 50% schmooze. That's one of the most different things about working on ships than it is on land.
Now, you mentioned you mainly are on Disney now.
Yes.
I think you said you started off on Crystal. What other cruise lines have you been on?
Oceania, Viking, Seabourn, Silver Sea, Azamara. I did Princess. I did I think 1 Norwegian contract. 1 Royal. Actually, I did a couple Royal. I did the Royals going back and forth to Cuba. Those were pretty cool back in the day. Mm-hmm. But then once I started working for Disney, they really liked me. I really liked being there. And I would say for the last 5 or 6 years, that's where I've been mainly focused. I really don't do anything else other than them right now.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to catch you on the sea, it's probably going to be Disney. They would
probably going to be Disney, and it's a good chance it's going to be a West Coast cruise. So I have a tendency to do the cruises out of San Diego, cruises out of Galveston, New Orleans, things on the West Coast. Though I just got done doing a lot on the Fantasy out of Port Canaveral, like I mentioned, and but mostly I have the tendency to keep me on the West Coast cruises. Like for example, if you're going to do an Alaska cruise on the Wonder next year for the Alaska season, I will be there for a significant amount of that next year.
Vanessa, talk about your first cruise accompanying John, which I guess also was your first cruise period.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, Crystal, as you know, probably is a very high end line, so that was fun to see and experience. And I think the restaurants are really fun. But I think one of my favorites was just going to different places. So there's sort of two parts of going on cruises with John. One is before we had our kid, and one after. Obviously, it's a different thing. So before we had Maddie, we did a lot of cruises with Seabourn, we went to Antarctica on Seabourn. We did part of the Viking World cruise.
Wow.
And so those are just obviously different experiences. I think Viking, you can't even have kids on it. I think that's
it's 21 up period.
Yeah. So it'll be a different type of experience there. I learned how to knit on the Viking World cruise, which was fun. And seeing the places there, I think, was the most exciting thing. And then post Maddie, we've only done Disney cruises with Maddie, both just because that's what John's been doing, and obviously that's one of the few cruises that taking a kid on is a good option. So and post Maddie, it's just seeing it through her eyes primarily, because she's now 3 years old and just loves seeing all her friends, Mickey and Minnie, and going to the Oceaneers Club and all that. So it's been enjoyable in different ways with before Maddie and after Maddie.
Yeah.
Maddie must be in her glory going on Disney cruises.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, the kids at her school have no, because she leaves all the time to go on ships with me, or I will just pull her out to go to Disneyland because we live close to Disneyland. I take her there all the time. So she has all these pictures with Minnie and Goofy, and when she starts regular school, when she's she's in preschool now, I can't imagine just her, being what do you mean that I don't have someone here to cut my meat for me? Where's my private valet? Where's the guy who's gonna come and bring me in the line to see Mickey? It's pretty amazing what kind of life she's getting to live, and I hope she appreciates it. I hope she does. I think she does.
So.
Hey, you mentioned Disneyland. Do you ever do anything with the parks anymore?
I have in the past, sure. I do occasionally. They bring me in for things, but right now my schedule is very tied up between the being with the ships and being on the cruise line, and there's whatever sort of corporate events that I do on land. So that's pretty much where I've been focusing things. But no, well, I think it was a couple summers ago. Well, actually a few because of COVID. I've now got to go back a few more. I did a thing where I worked in Frontierland doing close-up magic and as like a gambler, like an old riverboat gambler, and that was a lot of fun. But I haven't been able to be in the park. They haven't really had a lot of interactive stuff since COVID, honestly. So there's that.
And you're not involved at all in Vegas anymore, right?
I mean, if a corporation hires me and they're going to do their event in Las Vegas, I will go to Las Vegas. But as far as like a Las Vegas show, no, I'm not involved in any shows. But there's some great ones out there, but I'm not involved in any of them.
Vanessa, I met you or discovered you, or however you want to put it, through your article. I married a cruise ship entertainer, and here's what my life at sea is really like. So there were a couple of anecdotes in there I wanted to chat about. You've already mentioned one. It was a word, as much as I'm into cruising, I wasn't familiar with, and that's midshipping. And I think John has kind of explained midshipping, kind of advantages and disadvantages. So once you deal with the logistical challenges or any logistical challenges posed by midshipping and you board the cruise ship, what's it like? How different is the experience traveling as a guest of a performer versus other ship guests?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two stages to it. There's before John performs and after. So before John performs, I don't think there's really any difference at all because we're just another passenger on board the ship. But after John performs and people have seen him, obviously like people recognize him, but usually he mentions like I'm there as part of the scripting that you do for part of a show. People are aware like I am there and his wife, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes you get noticed and things like that, like, walking down the hallway or, and John's also really generous with his time, especially on Disney. Like he says in his shows, like, if you see me around and I'm not like eating or like taking care of my kid, like ask me to do like a trick and I'll do like a card trick for you and things like that. So we definitely get a lot of kids and grownups coming up asking him to do magic.
Does Maddie feel like a little celebrity?
Oh yeah, I use her in the show. I use video of her, not the actual physical her, but I use video of her in the show, and so people will want to meet Maddie. She has become a little celebrity because of things that happen in the show, and it's pretty funny. So people when they see me with her walking around the ship, they will usually never say, "Oh, there's the magician" or "There's John." They will go, "Oh, there's Maddie," and they immediately go for Maddie, which is pretty great.
So how do you guys, when John's not performing, how do you guys spend your time on the ship? I mean, what do you like to do? All of the normal stuff, I assume, the rides and what have you?
Yeah, I mean all the stuff that's available. I mean, Maddie really likes the kids areas, where you can play a little there, and I take her up we do the water stuff, the water play areas, and and she's now going to be just old. But last time she was not fully potty trained, and now she will be. So she'll get to do a lot more cool stuff that she wasn't able to do last time. So that'll be a lot of fun. You can see movies, and we do that, and we'll go see, do the character meet and greets or do the little character adventures that they have. And I guarantee you at some point we're going to have to do Bippity Boppity Boutique where she gets to dress up like a princess. We're going to spend money and pay. Because I mean, even though Disney's been very wonderful and generous when they allow me they bring them on as free passengers. They don't charge me anything for that. Anything we consume, I still have to pay for. So if she's going to buy the princess dress, I'm going to be paying for that princess dress. So we're going to be doing that probably. We'll have to do the princess tea. There's another thing that happens, So there's stuff like that we'll be doing with her. And then when I'm on by myself, I'm mostly spending my time in the adult areas, reading, working on new magic, going to the movie theater. Like I said, they always show a lot of the first run Disney films there, Marvel stuff or what. Yeah, I helped write. I wrote my book. I wrote a book while I was in downtime. So that's what I'm really doing. But again, I'm like any other passenger. I'm going to the buffet. I'm the only thing that I'm not allowed to do is do anything that would usurp or take something away from a revenue passenger. So I can't play bingo. I can't play the trivia contest. I can't go into something where I could win a prize.
Okay.
That is the only thing. But I could watch those events. In fact, I do. There's a big Marvel trivia off. I'm a big Marvel Marvel fan, and so I will go sit in the back and watch that. I won't play because I don't want to, take an award away from somebody who paid money to be there. But I love seeing the event itself, and I do what anyone else would do on the ship. I have a good time, and it's an amazing experience. And I go off the go off the ports when I can and things like that.
Yeah, we do excursions sometimes too. And we pay for those, any passenger would do that. So sort of offshore excursions. Especially before Maddie, when we went to Antarctica, we definitely did that.
I wanted to ask you about Antarctica in a minute, but do you go to do you enjoy the specialty restaurants?
Yes. So I fully believe that Palo, which is the Italian restaurant that is on 4 of the Disney ships, is one of the best restaurants at sea. And you just heard my history of working at some really fancy places, and I think it's really amazing, and they do a really good job. And once again, I'm very happy to go in and pay extra to experience such amazing dining there. We haven't done Remy, have we?
No.
We want Remy is the other Disney one. It's on the list. Eventually we'll end up doing it. But Palo, I love. I'm a big fan of that place. So yeah, we do that. And when we were on other ships, we definitely do the specialty restaurants as well. Yeah.
Well, that's saying a lot about Palo when you've been on Crystal and Viking, and I think you named a couple of other high-end lines. So
it was pretty good.
Palo's in good company.
Yeah, I mean for Palo's, for an Italian, it's one of the best Italian restaurants at sea. Period. I am really, I did it. Always enjoy it.
So in the article, Vanessa, you did mention your cruise to Antarctica. I have a ever-expanding bucket list, and that one's hasn't been checked off yet. It will someday. Talk about that.
Yeah, we did it with Seabourn. It was definitely a memorable trip in a lot of ways. You asked John about getting seasick, and I've also never had an issue except for that cruise, because to get to Antarctica you have to go through, I forget the name of it,
it's the Drake Passage. Yes, which they call
Drake's Passage.
Yeah, the sailors call it the Drake Shake. It is the roughest seas pretty primarily anywhere, and so you end up there were days where we would seeing most ships, things are bolted down, obviously, they're designed so that things would stay and steady, right? And we would see things roll off of tables and and little plants fall down and stuff like that, because that was what was happening. It was rocking that much on a regular basis.
Yes, and I definitely wasn't the only one who had issues. And they actually gave out, because Seabourn has this nice little coffee area. They were doing hot water with sliced ginger, which really helped. FYI for people who do that. So it definitely helped, but it didn't help one time, or help enough one time. So getting there was in itself was exciting. Definitely, one thing we also had, just for us personally, because we weren't traditional passengers, we didn't get the full list from Seabourn of what we should bring in terms of gear. So we didn't have proper, so for example, one things you should have on Antarctic ships are 100% waterproof boots, which we didn't get the memo for. So we had luckily they have something you can rent when you're there. And things like waterproof jackets. So I don't think that'll be an issue for people, regular passengers, but we didn't get the memo for that. But yeah, it's amazing. It's fantastic to go there. It's very quiet, once you're outside, because there's no airplanes overhead or anything like that. So I think just the islands is interesting. We saw a lot of penguins. They definitely have excursions every day where you go out in a Zodiac boat with a small group and see things. Yeah, and also, should we talk about the captain, I guess?
Oh, we had sadly one of the more, sort of odd, but obviously, emotional thing was that there was a crew member who was the fitness instructor, and they passed during the cruise.
Oh my goodness!
And then days later, the captain passed
Wow. On the same
on the
in,
same
in Antarctica.
in Antarctica. Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was this really so I got a call in my cabin from the cruise director saying, "Hey, we were going to do the the special the big show, but we can't because two people are too upset about the captain. Can you do your show?" And so I ended up having to like do the show, my solo magic show, when pretty much everyone had found out that the captain had passed on. So that was a very harder room, but honestly, it went over much better than I thought it would.
Wow. You know, I read an article similar to Vanessa's about someone who was a cruise ship doctor. And, you know, she did mention, you know, about a morgue on the ship. And I haven't interviewed her yet. So we're set to, in fact, I think it's next week. And, but two people on one ship. Wow.
Yeah, it was quite a...
That's pretty memorable.
Yes.
Yes.
Going back to your article, Vanessa, and I'm quoting you now. You said, "My husband might be the only magician who has ever stepped onto the stage of a 1,000-seat theater and received a standing ovation for a trick done with dental floss." So you have to say more.
Do you want us to talk about it, or do you want?
Okay, sure. So that particular cruise was very special. It was a 14-day Panama Canal cruise going from New Orleans to San Diego. And what had happened is that when you're mid-shipping or when you're doing a longer cruise like this, they don't need the guest entertainer to stay on for multiple days. In fact, they do not want that. They want us to basically get our stuff done from the first part, and then we would shift out with another set of guest entertainers because they have to do different shows every single night for the 14 days. And Disney only has 3 in-house shows, and they can show one of their movies. And so you have a lot of time to fill with these variety acts. And so we were only supposed to be there for the first 4 days or 5 days, I think. And we got on and I did my shows. And then, I should mention that this particular cruise happened in March of 2020.
Oh, okay.
And
that sets the
and
stage.
in March of 2020, we left and everything things were happening, but it was not, the world hadn't shut down yet. And then while we were there, the world shut down. So literally days into the cruise, the world shut down. And so they were not going to allow us to go to any ports and go into any docking things. So we could not leave. No other guest entertainers could leave. No new guest entertainers could come back in. The passengers could not leave the ship. So essentially, we had 10 sea days where we'd go through the Panama Canal, the whole thing, because everyone was stuck there because there was no way we could possibly get on or off the ship. And because of that, they didn't have the acts that they needed to be able to do the shows. And I don't know, without bragging, I'm sort of a walking encyclopedia of magic, and I have a lot of magic knowledge in here. And so I was able to put together 14 different shows throughout the entire cruise. And one of those shows was literally me running around the ship looking for random things that I could find, like in the gift shop or down in the crew areas or whatever, and building props to then do a show. And one of those tricks was an entire story about what had been going on, using dental floss, where I would then break the dental floss and then restore the dental floss. And again, in a 1,000-seat theater, small little thing, and it got a standing ovation because I sort of perfectly encaptured what was going on in that moment. We called it the last happiest place on earth.
So you guys finally got off. How'd you get who accepted you?
San Diego.
San Diego. We had back to the States. Yeah, we had to get. We were not able to get to a port until we got back to the United States.
Okay, because I've interviewed a number of people who have been on cruises that got caught in the pandemic, and the port they left from wouldn't even accept them. You know, for a while, Florida wouldn't allow Americans to come back in. Uh, I know one set of guests that I interviewed, they finally got accepted by Texas, but that's not where they embarked at. So,
Oh wow. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know the behind the scenes. I'm sure there was a lot of behind the scenes with us, but we weren't privy to that.
Let's talk a little bit about the future. Are you travelers in general when besides performing? I know that you said you don't do much cruising, but do you travel?
Oh yeah, we travel a lot. I mean,
Yeah, less so with the last 3 years with Maddie, but yes.
oh yeah, between COVID and the having a baby during COVID, and then
Yeah.
and then But I would say now that she's older and the world's opened back up, that we have every intention of taking Maddie to places. My big dream is to actually go a whole road trip across the country, but I'm going to wait until she's a little older for that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, she gets to go on a lot of cruises, so she will be traveling a lot. She'll just be saying the exact same things over and over again, but she'll be able to have a great time for sure.
We're also going to to Tahoe, because John's going to perform in Tahoe in a couple weeks, and we're all going up for that. So yeah, we like traveling. I think that's one of the things when we first started dating that was a shared interest for sure. Yeah.
You have anything booked?
Well, we're going on a cruise on Monday, just out of San Diego though. So there's that.
We're back on the Magic in Galveston
for Christmas. We're doing Tahoe.
Yeah.
And first week of December, and I don't know.
In January, we're probably going to Orlando, but we haven't actually booked it yet.
Yeah.
Will you be on the ocean Christmas Day?
Yes.
That should be exciting for a Disney cruise at Christmas time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think Maddie's going to dig it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
What's on your travel bucket list?
I have 2, which I think you've done, so it's less exciting for you. Yeah. I've never seen the Northern Lights, and so I really want to see the Northern Lights at some point. And I've never been to Scotland or New Zealand. So those are sort of my bucket lists. But I think
I've never been to New Zealand, so we should go to New Zealand.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've been to Scotland. I've seen the Northern Lights.
Yes. Yeah.
But yes, I would. We'd love to do that. And there's a lot of really great. If we did a cruise just as passengers and not working, there's a lot of really cool things that go to places that I would like to see. I've actually not spent much time in Greenland or Iceland. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Iceland's great. I have been to Iceland.
You have been to Iceland, yeah. I really like. I'm not a big sun, surf, outdoorsy type person. So a lot of the things that I want to do have a lot to do with theme parks and roller coasters and stuff like that. But as far as things we both share, natural beauty things, I think stuff we mentioned most likely.
Vanessa and John, let's talk about what you guys are up to now. Vanessa, start with telling us about your most popular articles and where we can find them. I thought the article that enabled me to find you all was kind of fun, and I suspect that you have kind of a bunch of those.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the travel and leisure essay, I think actually is probably one of my most popular I published, at least recently. Some of my other popular ones, for Smithsonian Magazine, I wrote a story about a female magician named Dell Odell, who had one of her first television shows in the early 1950s. I also have another piece that I think by the time this comes out will be out with Smithsonian about New York City's pneumatic tube mail service that they had running for several decades and was one of the longest running in the U.S. And I have several essays elsewhere, but you can find them all on my website, which is vfarmstrong.com.
How can our listeners follow you on social media and the internet?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter or X still, but I'm not on it much anymore under at vfarmstrong.com. And I'm also on Blue Sky at vfarmstrong.com. Those are my 2 socials.
How about you, John? Are you performing in Vegas or have any tours or projects coming up when you're not on the ocean?
I'll be headlining in a really great theater in Lake Tahoe this coming week. Actually, I leave tomorrow morning to go and start performing there for a week. Called Loft in Tahoe. It's a really cool place. So I'll be there doing my show. And then the next time I'm performing publicly will be in for Disney Cruise Lines. I'll be on Disney with Maddie and Vanessa for Christmas. So, and a lot of corporate events. And if people need me for a corporate event, by all means, they can reach out.
Well, this will air actually after Christmas, so let me.
Even better. So next year, if you need me, maybe in years future, by all means,
I was
let me
just
know.
going to say, let me take the time to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. It's kind of weird doing that, knowing that when listeners hear that, it's going to be in January sometime, or maybe February. I
Yeah.
don't have my schedule in front of me. Uh,
Well, I perform at the Loft a couple times a year, so look for me on the schedule there if you happen to be in Lake Tahoe, either spending time at the lake or going to the ski lodges there in South Lake Tahoe. I'm there at least a couple times a year.
John, say something about your book.
I wrote a book about magic for magicians. It's called How to Win. It's about my philosophy on stand-up performing and sort of my journey becoming a close-up magician, from being a close-up magician to becoming a stand-up magician. And it's really just for magicians. It's not really a book that's for the general public, but with a lot of help from this one right here, from Vanessa and some other magicians, I was able to cobble together my thoughts into something that has proven to be quite popular, which is nice.
Good. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
If I recall, you're not a big social media guy.
No, not really. If you really want to find me, the only really place that you can follow me, that you might see updates from time to time, is on Facebook, John Armstrong Magic at Facebook. But my website is cardjon, cardjon.com, cardjon.com. And you can join my mailing list. And those goes out a couple times a year, not a lot of times. Gives you an idea of what I'm doing and what ships I might be on and where I might be in the world.
And your book's available on your website, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I suspect we have a few fledgling magicians in the audience.
Sure.
Before we let you go, a couple of fun or maybe light cruise questions, and then perhaps an oddball question. And I say oddball because it's not necessarily a cruise related. So the first one's kind of easy. I'm just always looking to get some ideas from my guests. For each of you, what's your favorite cruise drink and cruise food?
Well, I think drink, I don't even know. We had once on, I think it was on Viking, that monkey gin drink.
Yes.
But I don't know if that was like a special drink or just something that we got made for us.
Monkey gin, that sounds
yeah, it's a type of gin. It's a type of gin.
It's a cocktail or it's a
mixed drink. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a type of gin, and came in this huge glass.
Yeah, it's a gin and tonic though, with like juniper berries in it and the whole year too.
So that was pretty good. And food, I mean, my essay talks a lot about waffles, so I feel like I have to say waffles, which is true. I do like waffles.
On the cruise ship.
On the cruise ship and off the cruise ship, but yeah.
Okay. How about Maddie? What's our favorite on the ship?
Oh, Maddie's a big drinker. She really loves those rum drinks with the big umbrellas. No, I mean she drinks two things. She drinks water and milk. That's all she drinks.
No,
so.
I actually was talking about her dish.
Her dish? Oh, chicken fingers.
Chicken fingers, fries.
And chicken fingers and fries. That's pretty much what she is consuming whenever she's on the cruise with me.
There you go. How about you, John? What's your dish?
Dish. I am a big fan of the lasagna at Palo for brunch. It's one of the restaurants on the Disney Cruise Lines, and it's delicious. It's one of my favorite things. And as far as drink goes, there is a good cruise drink is I just really like the martinis that they will do sometimes in Keys. Again, another Disney sort of piano lounge kind of thing. It's a very good dirty martini with Bombay Sapphire, if I'm not mistaken.
Second question: what's your most memorable, or funniest, or even most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
I mean, I think I talked about all mine in the essay, just about, being on the ship in the Panama Canal, in March 2020. When we were in Antarctica too, just because Antarctica is so, remote and beautiful. And, I don't think I definitely wouldn't get there any other way. So just seeing Antarctica and just how quiet it is out there.
All my cruises are memorable. Obviously, one of the most memorable times was the 2020 cruise during the beginning of the pandemic. But very, very, very early on in my, I wasn't really cruising back then, but I was on a ship, and this was, I had not, was not the magician I am now. This is my very, very early in my 20s. I went out, and they had me performing on these cruises that would go out to like the 3 Mile point and do donuts in the ocean and be a casino and then come back. And I had not really been on ships before, and so I ate food, which was not a great idea, and then I got really seasick, and then I had to do my show, and then during my show, while I was on stage, I let's just say did not have much control of my functions while I was on stage, and I did some as they call in the business, a protein spill while I was performing, and did not go over very well, and might have also damaged my clothing in other ways, also internally, just because I was not very used to that. And again, I was in my 20s. I'm 47 now. It was a long time ago, and so it was quite embarrassing, to say the very least, that I was on stage and trying to manage my show while I was holding back my my vomit, for lack of a better term. And so that was quite the quite the harrowing experience, but way, way, way in the past. Now it's insane. Like people, I'm around people on the ship, and they're like, "Oh, it's moving so much," and I'm like, "I don't even feel it." It's like it's amazing how used to the ocean I am. But yeah, those were the early
most
days.
memorable, most embarrassing. I wouldn't say funniest, but that kind of checks a lot of different boxes.
Oh, it's funny to some people. It's pretty funny. I can't. It's very scatological and has other elements to it that are not exactly great for the most public of podcasts. So if you ever see me on a ship and you hear this podcast and you come over and ask me about it, I will gladly sit down with you and do the whole story for you, and you will laugh, because it's kind of hard not to picture it and just be amused by the whole thing.
But I'll hold you to that if I ever run into you on the ship.
Yeah, I would love to.
I'll
I would
buy
love
you a
that,
drink and say, "Hey, John, tell me the
Yes, I'll
rest
tell
of
you the
that
whole
story."
story. Yeah, I definitely encapsulated that very quickly. So
I went to I went on a cruise, and it was sort of like it involved known music acts, and there was a well-known R&B singer. I won't name him. He was seasick, and he performed his entire act sitting there. He never got visibly sick, but we all knew he was sick, and he
yeah,
performed his entire act sitting down, and he was he was a trooper, but
yeah, he was a trooper for doing that for sure.
yep. So the last question, and this one is what I kind of call an oddball question. I know that you both have a large following, so welcome to Vanessa and John's friends and fans listening. We hope you have enjoyed what you have heard at the Joy of Cruising podcast, and will come back to listen to future or past episodes. Each of you, Vanessa and John, share one thing that my listeners and your friends and fans don't know about you.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
All right. I think I don't like blueberries. It's true.
Okay.
True fact.
Wow, deep cutting, controversial,
Indisputable.
indisputable. Wow. What's something that what do you think people don't know about me? I don't know, Vanessa. I don't know.
I'm thinking.
I'm pretty much an open book about so many things. Yeah. I don't. That's not. I'm not hiding that. I publicly post how much I love the Reacher show. I don't know, man.
You said the Reacher. You talking about Jack Reacher?
Oh yeah, Reacher.
The video show.
The Amazon version of that show is amazing.
Now, were you one of those who were offended by Tom Cruise playing it in the movies?
I don't know if I was offended, but I don't think he was the right stature. And then the gentleman who was playing him in the TV show is exactly what that guy should look like.
Okay.
Like exactly what that guy should look like. And it's amazing. And he plays it exactly deadpan the way that I imagine that character being. And yeah, it's great. Just show this amazes me. But see, something you might not know. I have no clue. What's something about myself that people would know?
You're swing dancing.
Oh yeah, that's right. I actually am a very good accomplished swing dancer. There you go.
Accomplished.
Some people would know that, but swing dancing, like 1940s style, jitterbug, that type of stuff. I actually was very involved with that weird swing revival in the 90s, and I got pretty good at it. So I can Lindy Hop and all that stuff. So people who are still doing it and still very much into it. It became its own sort of sect of pop culture, but I haven't done it in a long time. But it's one of the things I break out at weddings. If I'm ever at a wedding, I can break out the swing dancing. It's a good trick.
Vanessa John sounds like he's pretty good, so that means that you have to be at least okay.
No, I'm terrible. This is before my time. This is what.
Yeah, she doesn't.
This was like in the 90s.
She doesn't.
All right. Well, Vanessa and John, it was wonderful to chat with you. Thank you for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast. I wish you all the best in your individual careers, and happy cruising together and with Maddie.
Yes,
Great,
thank you.
So as they say, I'll see you on the ocean.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.